You are now listening to
Chakras and Shotguns. Welcome to Chakras and Shotguns, the podcast that guides you on a journey of spiritual development and personal preparedness. I'm Jenn, a kind of lawyer, former corporate lawyer, I don't know, tarot card reader, yoga instructor, lover of all things wellness.
And I'm Mick, a marketer, energy healer, and prepper. On average, we take between 17,000 and 24,000 breaths per day. A lot of breathing. So it's normal for us to kind of take breathing for granted. But today we're actually going to be a lot more mindful. We're going to focus in on the power of the breath and talk about how certain breathing techniques can be used for personal transformation.
All right. Before we get into that, though, we want to shout out Bran, our newest patron on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. It was amazing meeting you. I got to do her human design reading, so it was a fantastic experience. If you want to get in on these perks, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/chakras and shotguns. If you're thinking about getting a hoodie for the fall, sweater weather, you can get a discount on the merch if you go to patreon.com/chakras and shotguns.
Absolutely. So check that out. You can also find the link to that in the show description. Also had one more shout out. Jenn and I had a first that happened over the weekend.
Yeah.
We were out and about in LA. We're over at the LA County Museum of Art. And we had a listener come up to us out in the wild, say what's up to us. So that was the first time that's happened where we met someone who we didn't know before who listens to the show, and they wanted to just come up and meet us and show some love. So we really appreciate that. So shout out to Ashley. We really appreciate you coming up and saying what's up to us.
Yeah, it was completely out of context too. I was like, wait, where do I know you from?
Yeah, we had the kids with us. We didn't know what was going on. It was like, how do I know you? Okay, got it. So, but yeah, it was great to meet her. So yeah, if you see us out and about, come up, say what's up. We're always happy to meet folks who listen to the show.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's begin as we always do with a breathwork meditation to put us in a mindful place.
All right. I think I'm going to keep it simple.
All right, let's do it.
Also, I think this is the first time that we've recorded since Fat Man Scoop passed away.
Oh man, shout out to Fat Man.
And in the intro, all I could hear in my head was breathe in, breathe out. I love Fat Man Scoop.
Apparently our daughters do too.
And they always make me be Fat Man Scoop whenever we listen to Lose Control.
Exactly.
So, yeah, rest in peace. What a treasure. What a delight. But no, seriously, we're just going to keep it simple and focus on the breath, which is a very easy, Mick can attest to this. It's something he's been doing lately. Not trying to basically overplan your meditation of like, oh, I'm going to do this and maybe I'm going to connect with my spirit team, or maybe I'm going to manifest, or, oh, I'm going to try and get some downloads, or, whatever. But just sitting there for a period of time and only focusing on your breath, letting the thoughts come in and go, let them go unconcerned. And that's what we're going to do for a little period of time. All right. So go ahead and find a comfortable seat. You can always lie down, and let's begin. We're going to place our hands somewhere on our body, face down. So I always like to put one hand on my belly, one hand on my heart, to really give ourselves that mind-body connection as we're really being thoughtful and mindful of something that we do completely unconscious of until we're intentional about it, which is breathing. So take a deep inhale in through your nose and feel your belly rise underneath your hand. Exhale your breath back out through your mouth, feeling your tummy collapse. Let's do that again. Inhale through your nose. Exhale back out through your mouth. One more together. Inhale through your nose. And this time, seal your lips closed and exhale your breath back out through your nose. Try to slow down your inhale. So inhale slowly. And then exhale just as slow. Find an inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Go ahead and continue breathing. And try to match the lengths of your inhales to your exhales. If thoughts pop up, try and remain a detached observer and let them just pass you by. Bringing your awareness and your focus back to your breath. Notice how something as small as just taking in air and exhaling air can move your body, can create different sensations in your body. Take a deep inhale in through your nose. Hold that breath at the top. Exhale your breath back out through your mouth. Inhale through your nose. And exhale your breath back out through your mouth. Take whatever movements feel good to you in your body right now. Maybe you wiggle your fingers and toes, stretch your arms overhead. Whatever feels nice, whatever feels pleasurable. When you're ready, flicker your eyes open, come back into the room. Welcome back.
Great work again, as always.
Thank you.
All right. So let's get into the main topic.
Okay.
As we've kind of been on this spiritual journey, I mentioned before how I went to the Aniwa gathering and got to be in the presence of a lot of different indigenous elders. And one of the things that I was really fascinated by is that across cultures, there is this kind of importance that's placed on the act of breathing, not just physically, but also spiritually as well. And so I wanted to just spend some time really diving into that and really exploring, like, why is breathing and the breath so important?
For sure. And let's start with the physical aspects of breathing first. I mean, we know that breathing keeps us alive. But the reality is most of us are breathing too shallow the majority of the time. When we do an exercise like we did just a few moments ago, you notice that you don't breathe like that. You don't breathe that way in your day to day. I think I had to early in my yoga practice, I had to become accustomed to breathing in air while my belly rose. Even when we think about taking in a deep breath, we suck in. We're like, and suck our stomachs in. And when we breathe out, we think about our bellies going out. But instead, it's like this inflation of air, using our belly almost like a balloon before we deflate it when we exhale. So like even thinking about that of like learning how to breathe.
Yeah.
It's something that we don't do. And I forgot the biological term for this, but it's like breathing is one of those behaviors and traits that we don't have to learn. It's innate, right? You come out of the womb breathing.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's something that we can learn more about and master is fascinating to me, just from like a physical standpoint. But we're not using our full lung capacity in just like when we're passing the day away.
Absolutely. And it's actually really interesting. I think it's something that, I don't know, I never looked into like across cultures, like how breathing may be different across cultures, but I do know, and I've heard a lot of healers talk about this, and I didn't quite understand it, that they were saying things like, we're constantly in fight or flight, right? And I thought it was more so just like, we're getting a bunch of emails from different departments telling us we got to turn in this TPS report, and like that was keeping our like nerves high, right? That's kind of how I interpreted it. But like from a physical standpoint, our breath actually contributes to our body's ability to be in fight or flight or rest and digest. So you're talking about the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic nervous system. And so when you are in fight or flight, you breathe very shallow and quick, right? Like think about like if something is like frightening you, like, you kind of have that in and out really quick pace breathing. And so when we're breathing shallow, we're actually feeding that cycle, right? So it's like we breathe shallow and that puts us into fight or flight, and we continue to breathe shallow because we're in fight or flight, right? Like, and so it's like this kind of never ending cycle that we don't break unless we're very mindful and conscious of our breathing, So very interesting that like the breath can control that part of our nervous system.
Yeah. And we talk about fight or flight a lot on the podcast because it's fascinating and because it's also like a key in regulating our nervous system.
For sure.
But it's so stupid. It's so stupid that we have created conditions to make us feel like a lion is chasing us down. And it's just your micromanaging boss sending you like the third email in 4 minutes. Like, that's dumb.
Yeah, it's dumb.
We don't need emails to survive. It's not, you know what I mean? Like that mechanism is for survival. And you talking about like TPS reports or whatever, like, we're being silly about offices, but babies instinctually know how to breathe from their diaphragm.
Exactly.
And then we lose that ability. We don't lose it, but it's not as innate anymore over time. And you're talking about like being up here and being in the chest and feeling like your chest is tight and you can't breathe and you have a panic attack. It's like you've lost that. It's really like that connection with your body.
Absolutely.
Because of all of the noise. So the fact that breathing can help us control our level of stress is very fascinating to me. And when we were thinking through this episode, I thought about the early years of my legal career when I was at a law firm, which was very stressful for me. And I remember that I would get up from my desk. Maybe I was going to the copy machine or the bathroom or the break room, whatever. And I would take these really loud exhales. Now, I was practicing yoga off and on, but yoga was not life like it is for me now.
Yeah.
And so I would get up from my desk and I would just be like in the hallway and I'd be like, ah.
Yeah.
It was probably very disruptive.
Yeah.
But I remember this partner was like, Jennifer, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And my body was like screaming, like, get us the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
It's like, were freaking out.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is not okay.
You were in fight or flight.
I was in fight or flight, and I was just like walking down the hall, and I'll just be like,
Yeah.
and I was literally, my body was trying to tell me, hello, we're
Yeah.
trying to regulate here,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not helping.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all aren't helping either, but
Mm-hmm.
you're not helping.
Yeah. Now it's like, ooh, take that exhale when you need it, you know? And I'm sure your body's listen to your body when it's trying to tell you to take that exhale, all right?
Yeah.
And let that be a clue as to what's going on with you from a physical standpoint.
These are the days of our lives. I don't know. I don't think I do it.
Yeah.
I definitely don't do it at that frequency
For sure.
now.
Yeah.
But there have been times where I've let out an exhale and Mick's like, what's wrong? You mad at me? What's going on?
You got beef? You okay? You need something? So I think that kind of covers like the physical aspect of breathing, why it's really important that we breathe from our diaphragm. It helps us to get out of that sympathetic nervous system and into more of the parasympathetic, which is like the rest and digest phase. So, utilize, whatever tools you can to really focus on breathing from your belly. We went through an exercise with Jenn earlier today. That's one way in which you can, practice getting into that space from a physical standpoint. But I want to move the conversation and talk a little bit more about what breathing means from a spiritual standpoint. I think across major religions, we see the importance of the breath. I'll start with Christianity and talk about the Bible. So as they say in the church, I'm going to read from the King James Version. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. It reads, "And the Lord God formed a man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul."
In addition to the Bible,
Yes.
we also see similar language in the Quran where Allah creates man from clay, breathes a spirit into him. In Judaism, specifically Jewish folklore, Jewish mysticism, the word golem is a Hebrew word, and that's a mythical being created from clay and breathed into by its creator. Now, the first time I heard about golem, and as we were putting together this episode, I was like, it's a golem. We need golem. And I was like, well, where does that come from?
Mhm.
I thought it came from non-religious witchcraft. Like I thought it was a pagan type of idea, specifically because the first time I heard about golem, I don't remember what show it was, but it was probably a show I was watching or a book I was reading. And it was either probably used to do no good or something like that,
Mhm.
to kind of be this agent.
Yeah.
But like that it was magical and not necessarily spiritual.
Yeah.
I'm making a slight differentiation around it, but to find out that it was Jewish mysticism, and I even stumbled in, I'm going on a tangent, but I even stumbled into some Reddits about whether or not it was cultural appropriation for witches to create golems because it's a Jewish tradition. I thought was really fascinating. We've been talking about it for years about doing mysticism episodes about these religions that we feel like, look, as a Christian, growing up Christian, Harry Potter was on a chopping block.
It was controversial in some congregations. For
Halloween,
sure. Yeah.
It's a harvest festival.
Fall
festival. You're going to bob for apples and you're going to sit down and read the good book. So that was just fascinating to me. Thinking about it in that way, like we really only get, God breathed into this pile of dust and created a man and like that's it. And it's like this level of spiritual power that was like very much so reserved. And not accessible, but in like different traditions, it can mean different things.
Yeah.
But that's, that's very interesting because that's our background. That's where we came from.
For sure.
Where else do we see spiritually, the breath being important?
Absolutely. I think it also shows up in Eastern traditions. So thinking about Hinduism and Taoism specifically, the breath is viewed as vital life force, right? So in Hinduism, it's often referred to as prana. We see chi, which is also the ki in Reiki in the Japanese tradition. So this idea that the breath is really important for moving energy around the body shows up in the Eastern traditions as well. So when I kind of like take a step back and think about it, I think of how the breath across cultures is really like this connection that we have with the divine, right? God is literally breathing into us, right? And if we're made in God's image, then our breath holds power, right? So it's just really important for us to not take breathing for granted and to make sure we are being very mindful of how we utilize this resource we have.
That's a really powerful reminder, man, of just like something that we can think of as like so small, but so vital. And like
Hmm.
we understand that it's vital, but not, we may even dismiss the power behind that,
Yeah.
but behind that, like being something that fuels our life force.
Hmm.
As a yoga instructor, of course, I can definitely attest to how important breathing is. I think this is a good time to remind everyone that the physical practice of yoga, like the poses and everything, that's just one of the 8 limbs of yoga, and
Mm.
that yoga philosophy is really about how can I get a better connection to the divine? How can I better access that collective consciousness? So, when you're thinking about being able to sit and meditate for long periods of time using your breath, if your back, your neck, your back, your neck, and your back is kind of jacked up, that's why the physical practice comes in. So I
For
think
sure.
sometimes a lot of people are like, oh, yoga is just like stretching or, all of the different iterations of the physical practice,
Sure.
but it's bigger than that. And
Hmm.
breath is one of those limbs by itself, just breathing.
Yep.
So pranayama. So yes, breath is important in the physical practice. It's improving your posture. It's helping you get deeper into things. One thing I found very powerful when I started practicing yoga was when you're doing a body scan and maybe you're having like a little ache or
Mm.
pain or you're in a pose and it's like it's feeling difficult. The instructor may tell you to direct your breath to that body part
Mhm.
and using that energy, that chi, that prana to ease your suffering, so to speak.
Mhm.
And being able to think of like, wait, I'm sorry, you mean I can't get out of this pose or like take an Advil later? Or like, what do you mean I'm directing my breath there?
Mhm.
When I'm getting energy healing,
Mhm.
I try and help by directing my breath
Yeah,
towards whatever, like, whatever is feeling sticky or
for
tight.
sure.
And I feel like that makes it more easeful.
Mhm.
So there's that. But you also have like lion's breath, breath of fire, which can be a really interesting way of like transmuting energy. It can be invigorating, it can be energizing, all of these different things of just like playing with your breath. I
Yeah,
want to say play
yeah.
because it is interesting and you're like, oh, what's that? This is a different sensation.
Mhm.
And that just came from me going like,
Yeah, yeah.
now like I got wasabi brain, when you
Yeah.
eat too much wasabi, like all of this is, and all I did was breathe.
Live it up.
The last thing I will say is there is a class that I've taken called Psychic Development. It's taught by one of my favorite yoga instructors here, who hopefully I see today. And there are no yoga poses. You're just sitting on a mat and it's a bunch of breathing exercises.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite ones is where you direct your breath from through each chakra. And you feel each breath like once you're in it, because it's like an hour-long class. Once you're in it, like you feel once you get your breath to your crown chakra, you get all the little tingles.
Mhm.
You feel your breath. It's a different type of awareness that, again, something so small, something some people might even think of as insignificant until they can't do it,
Mhm.
can be really, really powerful in a
Yeah.
spiritual way.
Yeah, I got to attend one of those classes with Jenn once. So shout out to Yancy for that. We had a really good time doing that. Also want to shout out McKenna Anderson, who we've had on the show before, who does myofascial release. And you were talking about breathing into certain areas.
Mm.
When she's doing that fascia release, sometimes she'll ask you to breathe into that area if it's like a particularly tough spot that she needs to release your
Mm.
fascia in. And I know you're going to be having a session
On
soon.
Thursday.
Okay. So you'll get that experience as well. So if you guys haven't listened to that episode, go back and check that out. Fascia release is really cool body work that
I'm very excited because my sciatica is acting, and I'm very grateful that I have a very powerful energy healer in my house that can work on me every day. And I'm still gonna go see McKenna.
Yeah, no. I mean, I can do the energy part, but the fascia releases, that's what,
Yeah.
the body keeps score, right? That's like where
Yeah.
your body's still holding it. I'm not trained in fascia release, so I can't quite get it all the way worked out for you.
My last resort is just getting pregnant. That was the last thing to help do. Last time, when it flared up, I get pregnant to go away.
Don't be
But
looking at me.
but we need more patrons for this.
yeah, definitely. Don't look at me right now. I want to discuss a process that I've learned. It's a breathwork practice that I recently was trained in. So it doesn't actually have a name, but it was developed by a man named David Elliott. And it's essentially a breathing technique where you're breathing in your mouth and out through your mouth. You kind of take 2 breaths in. So it's kind of like you fill up your belly first, then your chest. So it's like and then you exhale out of your mouth again, right? And so you're basically just doing that technique for a specific amount of time. And what's happening during that process is you are oxygenating your blood because you're taking in a lot more air, and you are basically allowing energy to move with that breath. And so, as we talked about before, how the breath is, in all traditions, really connected to life, right, and the vital life force energy. And so, with just breathing, no psychedelics, no, other techniques that folks can, implement. You're just using your breath. You're able to really move lots of energy throughout your body and have really cathartic healing experiences. And so what I've seen in the training, as well as working one-on-one with people, is that it can be a very intense emotional release that people experience. There are folks who are, dealing with childhood trauma, sexual trauma, things like that. And by just using that breath, they're able to unlock some of those wounds and move some of that energy out of their lower chakras, and out of their body, just using that breath. And it's super powerful. I mean, folks may have seen videos on social media of like rooms of people who are crying and they're breathing really heavy. That's a derivative of this, a different type of breath. I don't think there's any that David has published out there on social media. But there are a lot of different types of these techniques. The one I learned just came from David Elliott, who again is an author and healer, and he's written a couple books. I learned it through Aaron Telford, who's an amazing breathwork facilitator. And so yeah, I got trained in being able to hold space one-on-one for folks, and I've had the pleasure of doing that for folks for about a month now. So
I didn't know what all this was going to entail.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was very powerful.
yeah,
Whew, it's work.
it is work.
They put the work in breath work.
Yeah, it's an active breathing technique. Like you actually have to be like focused on your body breathing. I actually don't like it. To me, it's like at the beginning, it feels like I'm at the gym. I'm like trying to like get myself to do something.
But the payoff is very,
Yeah.
very huge, especially once you know not necessarily what to expect, but if you remember to let go,
Mm-hmm.
like once you're done with the work and you just let go, it's like sensations. It can be here, it can be crown chakra. You might see things, you might experience things. I feel like I had like downloads and like kind of like revelations or like different thoughts about different things I was kind of puzzling through at the time. And it's really about once you let go into it,
Yeah.
it can be very powerful. And as someone who partakes in plant medicine from time to time, I would say like the experiences can be very similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is very fascinating and interesting.
For sure. Yeah, I had one client. I'm not gonna say names or anything. I'm gonna keep that confidential. But I did have a client who had some sexual trauma in the past, and when we were going through the process, she started to have like these kind of involuntary shakes. And my instructor had talked about specifically when some of those convulsions happen, it's like the body remembering that abuse and like trying to fight against it, essentially, like kind of going back, almost like you're reliving it back, going back in time and having that physical reaction of trying to get the person off of you or whatever that may have looked like. So it can, again, just be really powerful what comes up for people and what they're able to release. Because at the end of it, she was able to kind of reclaim herself, reclaim her energy and her body, and kind of stand more in her power. And obviously, it's very emotional. I mean, she had lots of tears coming out, but I think it was, as I said before, cathartic, just like able to get that out and release and feel more healed energetically for people. And then I'll say from just my own experience, I haven't had that level of trauma, but I will say that there have been some blocks, some fear blocks and things that I've experienced along this route, along this path. And I think there'd been a period of a couple of months where I was feeling just not as tapped in from like a intuitive, spiritual standpoint.
Yeah.
And there was something about going through this breath work and removing some of those fear blocks that really allowed for me to tap in. And I felt the presence of both of my grandmothers. I felt and even saw Jesus at one point. Felt like I was like able to kind of have this clear line of communication with the divine in a way that I had felt blocked from before. So yeah, there's just so many applications, I'd say, to utilizing this technique. And yeah, I really would encourage folks to taking the opportunity to do some of that work. And there's ways you can do self-guided. So on Spotify, David Elliott does have a playlist of breathwork exercises that you can do. If you're looking to be guided and have someone facilitate for you, I do have offerings now up on the Chakras and Shotguns website where you can do a remote guided one-on-one session with me. And I'll be offering a discount for a limited time. So you can use the code BREATHE25 to get 25% off. So that is now live on chakrasandshotguns.com/readings. So check that out.
It mixed up. I did breath work one time, like a full one.
Yeah.
During yoga teacher training with someone else. And I don't know if we were just like tired from training or what, but it did not click. It did not stick for me. I don't know. I don't think the cards were not, it wasn't aligning. The stars, not cards. You know what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry. Anyway, Mick is really good about guiding. And I would definitely suggest for your first one to do a guided one. But because the breath can kind of be a little tricky to get the first time, because we're not used to inhaling through our mouth, inflating our belly. Like it's kind of like it's a little bit different. Yeah. So having a guide, I think, was very helpful. And Nick, like doing it one-on-one was very helpful for me. Okay, so we're talking about some really simple breathing techniques that you can do in a few minutes, especially if you have an Apple Watch and you can do the setting where you just breathe for a minute, very similar to what we were doing, trying to remember to do the belly inhale and exhale. Some of the techniques that we're also going to talk about are similar to the breathwork meditations that we've done at the beginning of the show. I feel like we've done each of these at some point in time. And we have even more available in our breathwork library that is available to our Patreon subscribers. So you have box breathing.
So that's just basically breathing so where you're taking the same number of seconds as you inhale, then you hold for the same number of seconds, then you exhale for the same number of seconds, and then you hold again for the same number of seconds. So it's typically like 8 seconds, I think is usually what most people do, but you can put variations on that.
Okay. 4, 7, 8 breathing. Let's inhale, hold, exhale. Inhale 4, hold 7, exhale for 8 seconds. So taking a much longer time to exhale. And then alternate nostril breathing. You can hold your nose and then inhale, exhale on the other side, inhale on that side, exhale, and just kind of toggle back and forth. That was always really interesting. I like alternate nostril breathing. Yeah. That's something we would do in that psychic development class.
I feel like for me, it requires a lot of coordination. So I'm always like, I'm on the right nostril. So it all depends on your personal preference. For me, it's a little bit too much thinking on my on my part.
It's almost like you have to bring your awareness to like, okay, just the left nostril inhale, right nostril exhale, right nostril inhale, left. And like almost that is like an active meditation.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you get to in your head like, what nose? Do I hold this? How do I want to? Then you kind of spin yourself out. But if you're just like in it and just like focus on like, this is what I'm doing. Yeah. Then I think it's a little easier.
All right, we're going to get out of here, y'all.
Not to make a baby either.
Not to make a baby. Friendly reminder to, again, go and check out our Patreon account. Since Jenn wants to have another baby, we need your support. So go to patreon.com/chakras and shotguns. The link is also in the show description or on our website, chakrasandshotguns.com. Lots of great stuff there. The breathwork library is available. Discounts on merch like this very, very comfortable hoodie that I'm wearing right now. So go ahead and check that out.
We have a crop top hoodie too.
Oh yeah.
That's my fave.
That is your fave.
All right. And finally, if you're loving the show, please subscribe and give us 5 stars wherever you watch or listen.
Namaste.